Between Life and Death by Jaclyn. Chapter 23. I opened the little black box, my fingers drifting over the black diamond anklet Vaughn had given me. It was beautiful. I had never owned something so exquisite, been gifted something so exquisite. After I'd bombed our mission at the bathhouse, Harper had grabbed it, as well as the rest of our stuff, and brought everything back to the mansion. I was thankful she did. We did not need them going through our coats and finding 2 glass vials. Closing the lid, I set it back down on the makeup vanity, and began the task of brushing my hair. Despite my 2-day slumber, it wasn't that bad. I stared at the cluttered top of my dresser, looking at nothing as I brushed. My thoughts were adrift, flowing with determination and ebbing with doubt. I had no other choice. I had to return to the bathhouse. It was the only lead I had, and I would be damned if I let it go. But what would I do when I returned? Beg for forgiveness? Whose wrath would be worse? The Ma Dames are the king's advisors. But I didn't care. I would face them both if that was what it took to get Caleb back. A constant, pulsing whisper beckoned me from my thoughts. I knew it was him. Wood clicked upon wood as I set the brush down on the oak top. I lifted my gaze, meeting his in the reflection of the mirror. Goddess divine, those eyes. Tonight, I had chosen black silk, the same piece of cloth that I'd felt drawn to on the first night Harper and I worked at the bathhouse. Now that I had it on, it felt like it was tailored especially for me. The neckline plunged deceptively low between my breasts. Thin straps reached like arms, winding delicately around my neck. The fabric ended at the curvature of my hips, dipping in front, just enough to cover my core and peachy backside. The back fell open, revealing my slender, feminine muscles. Vaughn's black lashes slowly drifted down, coaxing a shiver to stroll the length of my spine. I could feel the soft, intimate brush of his knuckles roaming down my skin. The sensation of his touch, it stirred something, a hunger, a need, and I found myself yearning for more. But when I looked up, he was still standing by the door. I hated how real it felt. I wanted it to be real. Wanted to feel him touch me like that. Normally, I covered myself up. But tonight, I would let him look. Tonight, I would not run from him. I gathered my hair and swept the wintry strands back, the length of it cascading in soft, sultry waves. Sifting through my makeup bag, something Harper had encouraged me to get during our adventures downtown, I moved on to my makeup. I applied a dark, moody, red paint to my lips, the whole time feeling him, every bit of him, watching me. After, I searched for the brush with the fine tip. When I found it, I dipped the end in an inky glass pot and began to slowly outline the top of my lashes with kohl, winging it at the sides. When I was finished, I heard his spoken command. Come to me, little goddess. Slowly, I turned, the velvet fabric of the stool snagging against the silk, pulling it up, exposing my upper thigh, the caress of it eliciting another shiver. My nerves felt like embers ready to ignite. I stood, my heels clicking as I walked towards him. I looked up, caught on the hook of the one predicted to suck my soul dry. In this moment, the way he looked at me, I would let him. His knuckles drifted lightly over my shoulder, a spark left in their wake, threatening to catch. I think you finally found your color, he murmured, his tone a dark decadence. But this strap, his finger slipped under the thin strap, gently stretching it upwards, testing its strength. With one snap of his finger, easily, it would break. It is so very thin. And right now, he leaned in, whispering in my ear, it is all that keeps you from me. The intent behind his words elicited the same feeling as if his ringed fingers were between my thighs, working that sensitive bundle of nerves. Goddess divine. Then snap it off. I didn't offer, I demanded. He pulled away, a wicked gleam catching the sharp tips of his canines. I do not think the owner would be too happy with me if I were to do that. His eyes looked pointedly at me, implying I was the owner. It's not mine, I replied honestly. Whoa, he countered, a teasing smile touching the corners of his devastating lips. Kiss me, I said, my fingers drifting to the lapel of the black jacket he wore. It looked painfully expensive, and so unlike the fashion worn here. It matched his otherworldly eyes. Both didn't belong. He tipped his head to the side in that predatorial way, painting him as the wolf, and I the rabbit. What will you give me in return? Anything, everything, I whispered breathlessly, lured by his gaze, by him. Intoxicating, consuming him. The constant push and pull between us had finally reached a precipice. Now I was at its mercy. His fingers caressed my cheek. Are you so sure this is what you want to bargain with? I nodded, desperate. I'd tell him just about anything right now. Say just about anything if it meant he would just kiss me, touch me. Consider it a deal, little goddess. Something sinister flashed victoriously across his eyes, like he had just watched me stroke my signature across the bottom line of a contract. In that second, I wondered what in the spirit realm I had just agreed to. I took a step back, driven by a moment of uncertainty. He tipped his head in the predatorial way. Whoa, no, little one. There will be no retreating from me now. He moved so fast, there was no time for me to react. Roughly, he cupped my ass, using it as leverage to pull me into him. He squeezed it just enough that it teetered between pleasure and pain, just enough to bring me up on the tips of my toes. His hand weaved in my hair, at the back of my head, angling my face up to his. He took one look at me before he brought his lips down on mine, setting me aflame. Vaughn was not gentle. He was demanding, and goddess divine. I craved every bit of it. His mouth claimed mine. I wrapped my arms around his neck as my mouth moved against his, yearning to claim his right on back. When I felt his tongue sweep over my lips, they parted willfully for him, as if they knew what he wanted. He growled at my body's responsiveness to his, the sound of it rumbling through me, all the way to my core, to my curled toes. His tongue slipped inside. He dragged it across the roof of my mouth in one dominant sweep, pulling it back until the tip of his tongue reached my teeth. But instead of exiting, his tongue flattened and drove back in, continuing his exploration, all the while tasting and teasing, chasing away every unexplored inch before he tangled it with mine. With ease, he swept me from my feet like I was no more than a trembling leaf caught on the wind. He walked us over to the bed, his lips still moving against mine, tethering me to him, all of his hard edges pressed into my soft curves. Smoke and water, leather and silk, obsidian and snow. It was him and it was me, his divine masculine summoning my divine femininity to break free from her reservations. Eagerly she did. I tore off his jacket and chucked it to the side, removing his shirt next as he lowered me down onto the bed. The softness of the bed contradicted the steel pressed against my front. My fingers roamed over his broad, tattooed shoulders, down his thick pectorals to his stacked abs. Great divine, every part of this man was hard, an addictive mixture of anticipation, and nerves coursed through my veins as I wrapped my legs around his waist. He rolled his hips into mine, pressing himself against my throbbing core. I groaned at the sudden friction, desperate to feel more. My hands shot to his waist, aiming for his belt buckle, but he captured my wrists and hauled them over my head, pinning them there with his one hand. Vaughn tore his lips from mine, setting my mouth free, but I didn't want to be free. I wanted his mouth back on mine. I was feverish, etching, riddled with need. I looked up at him, my expression conveying as much. I unwrapped my legs and dug my feet against the bed, using the leverage to better grind myself against the bulge tucked beneath his pants, my body blatantly telling him what I wanted. Telling? It was outright screaming. I wasn't embarrassed by my bluntness. That dominant side of him axed me from my shame, leaving me in a wake of carnal, animalistic lust. A slow, steady exhale fell from his mouth as he studied me like he was trying to decide what to do with me. He parted his lips, his tongue rolling over his perfectly white bottom row of teeth, his sharp canines poking out from his top lip. I suppressed a whimper, wondering what it would feel like to have them at my throat. In my throat. Fuck. Where was this coming from? I must confess, little goddess, he started, his voice husky, dangerously low. I'm angry with you. Angry enough I'm tempted to tie you to this bed, and leave you here for the rest of the night, until I can return later, and finally taste what is mine. A shiver ratcheted through me, straight to my desperate, throbbing core. I nibbled on my bottom lip, the thought of him tying me to the bed only serving to turn me on more. Dirty girl, he mused before he hauled his mouth against mine, his kiss punishing this time. Branding. I took everything he gave greedily, happily, and when he pulled back again, I nearly cried out in frustration. I tried to pull my wrists free, desperate to touch him, to force his lips back to mine, but his grasp was unbreakable. I glared at him, my brows knitting. This was torture, and judging by that coy smirk, he damn well knew it. You are so incredibly beautiful, even when you scowl, he praised as his fingertips slid up my leg, a whisper of a touch. He watched my reaction the higher his hand roamed, watched my lips part as he cupped my breast, his large hand easily enveloping it. A breath, painted with pleasure, fell from my lips. His rings glinted in the candlelight as he played with my breast, massaging and squeezing and teasing. I arched into his touch and pressed my head back, wiggling my hips beneath his in circular motions. He increased the weight of his hips atop mine, and I moaned, welcoming the added friction. His hand released my breast, moving higher, his hips pulling back from mine. I let out a growl, increasingly frustrated with his teasing. I wanted him. Everywhere. As lovely as you are, you don't get to be angry right now, because that honor is all mine. His rings bit into my neck as he glided his hand over it, applying just enough pressure to make it uncomfortable in all the right ways. Roaming higher, he slid his hand over my jaw, stopping when he reached my mouth. He brought the rough pad of his finger against my bottom lip, swirling it, dipping the tip of his thumb inside, making it wet, unyielding, claiming eyes met mine. The next time you think of kissing another? Vaughn leaned forward, bringing his lips a breath away from mine, just enough so I could taste his words. Come to me first, so I can remind you who these lips belong to. Breathing became difficult. I met his firm gaze, pushing this one step further, needing to hear him say it. Who do they belong to? These pretty lips. He smeared my bottom lip to the side, tugging it forcefully as he ground himself roughly against my core, teasing that part of me, extending his claim, are mine. Proving his point, he smothered my lips under his kiss, kissing me in such a sinful way. I knew from this point forward, I'd forever be ruined. My lungs rasped as I kept up with his mouth, our bodies moving against one another. His hand gently lay against my throat, and even though he wasn't squeezing, my oxygen felt controlled by him. Each time his lips parted, I breathed his oxygen in, deeply. He nipped at my bottom lip, locking it between his teeth before he let it slip free. Whose are they? Yours, I breathed against his lips. Good girl, he purred darkly, the combination of his praise and his voice making me melt beneath him, my bones turning to jelly. He pulled back, his weight instantly gone. My eyelids sprung open. Vaughn was gone. Like gone. I blinked, confused, dazed, and damn well straight out of my mind. Vaughn? I asked the silence. No answer came. I rubbed my eyes, as if that would help. It didn't. Had I imagined him? I propped myself onto my elbows, all too aware of the liquid heat pooling at my core, soaking the tiny string of fabric deemed underwear. I touched my lips. They felt tender and raw. No, I hadn't imagined it then. I got up from the bed, taking in the hot mess staring back at me through the oval mirror. My makeup was ruined, the lipstick smeared, the kohl liner smudged. My hair, my gods. What was once soft silk now resembled a rat's nest. I definitely had not imagined it. Sighing, I walked over to the makeup vanity. I picked up the brush and repeated the process of getting ready, ignoring the female equivalent of blue balls currently happening in my nether regions. My mouth wasn't the only thing throbbing. I growled. That male was insufferable. And yet, come to me first, so that I can remind you who these lips belong to. His bourbon voice replayed in my mind. Fuck, I wanted him. When I was satisfied with my restoration, I left the ghosts in my room and headed over to Harper's and Lyra's chambers, knocking first. Come in, Harper called out, her voice muffled through the door. When I entered, I found Harper stretched out on the bed, lying on her stomach. Lyra sat cross-legged on the other side, a set of cards in her hands. She waved at me, offering a kind smile. I smiled back. Hi Lyra. Harper plucked a card from the stack sitting in front of them before she turned and looked at me. I didn't think you were actually going to go back. She gestured to my outfit with her free hand. But apparently you are. He might come back. I have to try again. I sat on the edge of the bed. It's foolish, Sage. What if he figured out you drugged him? Can you imagine what the king's advisor, of all people, will do to you? He'll have you thrown in jail and hung before noon, she exclaimed as she threw down 2 cards, the game they played foreign to me. It's a risk I'm willing to take, I said, watching as Lyra played her hand. Harper sighed in defeat, chucking her cards onto the bed. Fine, but you aren't doing this alone. Give me 5 to get ready. You don't have to. I'm the one who created this mess. She looked me dead in the eye. Yeah, you kinda did, but I'm not going to make you clean it up alone. She leapt from the bed and headed towards the bathing room. I helped Lyra clean up the cards, and before long, Harper stepped out from the bathing room, wearing a little orange number that set her dark skin aglow, with her hair braided and pulled up into a ponytail. She shot me a thumbs up. All right, I'm ready to go. I nodded, grabbed our fur coats, and the 3 of us headed downstairs. Riker sighed when he saw us. Not you, too. Harper and I exchanged confused glances. What do you mean? I asked him. Vaughn just headed to the bathhouse. He gestured to us. Judging by the official, we're going to the bathhouse coats. You 2 are as well. Wait, what? I blurted out. Why is Vaughn going to the bathhouse? He's going to try to track down the whereabouts of the king's advisor, Riker said, rubbing the stubble on his jaw, rough finger pads, sounding against the short bristles. I highly doubted Vaughn was going to dress up in a skimpy little outfit and entertain the men. which meant he was going to use another tactic. I had a feeling it involved force. We gotta go. I looked down, reaching for Harper's hand. That was when I noticed it, the tattoo. A delicate, thorny vine started at my wrist and slithered up and around my forearm. What in the spirit realm was that?